week. Wow. What a week. So I really was like that close to pulling out some Daniel. And next week I might still do it because in the Old Testament lectionary that we're working on up here at St. Paul this year to try to deep dive into our understanding of the Old Testament as the revelation of Jesus, we're going to be looking at Daniel next week. So I might just dig in. I definitely am digging into Daniel. I'm going back and re-listening to the original Wizard. That was a cool one. Man, how do I remember this stuff? That's the question. You think I know it all. I don't. I write a lot of it down, and then I forget it later. What I want to know is how to know it. That's why I'd love to see some of these things turn into books, not so much so that I can have them in my name, but so that I can go and find the information again without having to dig so much, right? That's my hope. And on that, randomly, would you believe it? I did dig into Revelation last night and this morning. Not so much to get us back into Revelation, although in a few weeks, apparently, right where we stopped, I said that well, right where we stopped digging in deep is going to be where the lectionary, 3-year, is going to just kind of drop it in. And the request came, hey, can you look into that? And I responded, well, maybe, not probably the same way, but if you subscribe to the Mad Christian Mondays newsletter, you will see that there is a video for the upcoming 3-year lectionary and historic lectionary and Old Testament lectionary every week for you to look at. So if you're interested in that take on that text, that is coming too. But the reason I dug into Revelation today and last night is because we're starting a new midweek Bible study group at St. Paul right after confirmation. Confirmation has a prayer service right after it, and we invite people to come to that prayer service. And then we have an open group that I'm hoping is going to be young adults and youth, and we have a couple of those. But it's also open to anybody else who wants to come, and we have a couple of those. We had a couple families stick around as well. And we're going to be going, into Revelation. And how far do you think we got? Would you believe it? We made it through the first verse. There's just so much to set up for the book of Revelation. So many misunderstandings or assumptions that even though you really can't permanently undo them until you get into the text itself, you need to say, hey, we're going to be undoing this. Or that if you don't understand this, you're going to find what I say particularly challenging. Well, it was a good class. I enjoyed it. We went into a massive tangent on the incarnation of Jesus, and I might just touch on that one a little bit here today as an aside. We'll see if we get to it. But then I came out of it with okay, well, those couple of things that were there, that was really helpful. I should write that down. So I jotted down some notes, and then this morning I started taking those notes, and I wrote a chapter in a book on Revelation. Yeah, right. When's that going to happen? We'll see. But chapter 1, the cipher, is there, and it's good stuff. I love the opportunity to deep dive into theology. The challenge is always how to do it so it coincides with what people really need from you as their pastor, right? This is the advantage in theory of being a resident scholar. There's a few of those chairs still around. Their job is to sit around and just think about theology, but they don't, and study it. They don't give those jobs to young guys, generally speaking, and guys without PhDs, not usually on the list, and people who stir the waters too much, not usually on the list either, even though they always want, at least in my understanding, they want this go-getter who's going to go out and change the world, but don't change anything here while you're changing the world, right? That kind of thing. Anyhow, it'd be nice to have that time, but then again, maybe it wouldn't. I have a hunch that too much time would also make one as unproductive as too little time. Nah. And I don't intend to get into productivity too much here today, at all here today. Although I'm going to wrestle with it now that it came to the top of my head. Because there is this thing that has been said by a very wise man, I think. He's not wise about everything, but he's very wise about a number of things. Tim Ferriss talks about how busyness is a form of laziness. And I think he's right in general. I think David Allen says this too in Getting Things Done, come to think of it. Busyness is a form of laziness. What it is the result of a lazy mind. Now, be patient. This is supposed to help, not make you mad. It is the lazy mind in a particular way. It's not that you aren't trying. You're just not trying the thing that you need to try, which is to plan. Yeah. So busyness means a lack of planning. So if I look at my current slate of ugh, incapacity to find the time, I know it's my failure to plan. In a particular way, I've probably not probably I've overplanned. I have seen the great golden diamond in the sky, and I have decided to lasso it with a supercomputer slash steampunk, I don't know, dragon powered machine. And I just having trouble finding the dragons and the steam power at the moment. It's just there's more there that can fully be attained, and that happens in life quite a bit. The other way you fail to plan is you don't plan at all, right? And that's what say getting things done is supposed to help you with. Is say, well, maybe you should plan instead of standing there. Sadly, I'm thinking about one person, a friend, is standing there talking to everyone about how busy you are for 10 minutes. Maybe go sit down and like make a list. Right? That might help a little. So I do have a list for today, both in terms of what I actually think I need to do, and then in terms of what I want to talk about with you. And it's going to have to dovetail to what's already here in my head, what is coming across my plate. But here it is. Here it is. I don't think it's that bad. We're going to do another discussion about a conversation that Joe Rogan had. Different guest this time. His guest was Everlast. Everlast of House of Pain fame, as well as Whitey Ford sings the blues. That's my preferred version of him, by the way. He plays a mean guitar, and he mixes it with some hip hop DJ. I don't even know what they call that, scratching. It is so cool, so absolutely cool. I'm not always a fan of his lyrics. Love his voice. His voice is fine, but his lyrics, they can take or leave sometimes. Man, does he have a rhythm with that thing. But they had a pretty decent conversation, a little long, a little windy, not the best Joe Rogan ever. They got off track, but at a certain point, they started talking about aliens and religion at the same time. And I perked right up. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah. And so we're gonna play a brief clip from that. We're gonna talk about it. And we're gonna, I think, try to do a little more 2 Kings Jeremiah 52. So if you listen to the sermon from last weekend, you got to touch on it, but I promised in the sermon some stuff in the Bible study, which some of it was in the video prepping for that week on Mad Christian Monday. Find that youtube.com/RevFiskJXL1. But the real deep dive was that Bible study class, and I thought afterwards, oh my goodness, Jonathan, why did you not record that? And I know why. It's because I really want a good quality recording, and to do that, I would need to take the time to purchase a particular kind of microphone. They're out there, and I know exactly what I want. They're not cheap, right? It's not the $20 one that plugs into your iPhone and sits in your pocket and has a wire annoying you to death the whole time. It's a little nicer one. I'd love to video record it too. We'll see. We'll see if the congregation can get there. We've got some capacity at this point to think about these things, but we again can't plan too much at once. We got to make sure we handle what's actually before us on the ground, which, as we transition to our new facility, continues to be, life. Curveballs here and there, that kind of thing. So, that said, I didn't record it, and yet it's like, wow, man, how do I remember this? Yeah, I want you to remember it too. Sure, great, yeah, but as a pastor, it's kind of my job to remember it. And I got some notes, okay, but how do I find it quickly? Or one of the other ways, how do I find it without my notes? Well, the way I find it without my notes is I talk about it again. The more that I can tell it to you, say it 3 or 4 or 5 times, the more likely it's going to stick. So we're going to do some of that. And then, as we have time, I want to give you this incarnation tidbit from last night. And we'll see how far we go, but it stuck with me now. It was a bit of a tangent, and just digging into the challenge we have as modern people particularly, not just as humans, as modern humans, with the incarnation of Jesus in regards to his humanity. We tend to have a lot less trouble, I think, I'm talking not non-Christians here, I'm talking Christians. We have a lot less trouble with his being God than we do with his being man. Now, we don't actually come out and say, "Whoa, I have trouble with his being man," but our imaginations surely do. And I'm going to try to dig into that a little bit here. And then if we have time, I've had this thought kind of bouncing around my head. In fact, it's turned into my part of my morning preparations, prayers / statements. So I shared with you a little while ago how in the morning, in conjunction with my prayers, I have taken on a practice of repeating certain things. And this, if you want to go with the pop culture version of this, is called affirmations, daily affirmations. And man, doesn't that sound cliche? That's it. Cliche is actually a little stronger a word than what it feels to me is girly. That would be the word. Flowery, cheesy, something that is for effeminate people. Nothing wrong with being effeminate, particularly if you're a female. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. It's great. God created woman. Woman is diverse. That is beautiful. But see, I'm not one. I'm what they call a man. And I know we have some trouble with this these days. It's a little tough. I'm not going to go into the details. You can look at it in a biology textbook, though. It's right there. It's really evident. DNA, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things about being a man is that generally you do not want to be a woman. Right? I mean, this is just kind of, it's general, even the majority. There are some out there right now that are making our culture talk about how they do want to. Okay, well, I don't even want to talk about that. I want to just talk about how generally most guys are like, I'm not really content to wear a dress. Like, they're just not really into that. Yeah. They want to be guys. And that would be me. And so doing something like writing a daily affirmation, because gosh darn it, I'm smart enough and I'm good looking enough and people have to like me. Yeah. Like, that's what it feels like. But that's not what I'm doing, though. And so that's why I'm talking about it at length here, because I wouldn't do that. That's annoying to me. I'll admit that my own human capacity for shame, which we all share and Christians are thankfully spiritually gifted to be aware of, right? My own capacity for shame doesn't make me like want to look into my eyes in a mirror and say, wow, that guy's pretty sweet, right? It's just not the natural thing. But that's not even, who cares, right? God didn't create us with mirrors. There are mirrors in the world, but they weren't there to just be found. We aren't made to look at ourselves. So my approach to the idea of like a daily affirmation is to connect it to what Christians do, which is daily prayer. And in that, and I shared this with you, what I do is I remind myself, they're really daily reminders, I guess is better. I remind myself of truths that God has spoken to me, particularly, which are helpful for like today. So you heard me say it, right? I am immortal. That's a good one to remember. I wish I could remember that more than just first thing in the morning. I'd like to remember that, all day long. It's easy to forget. I'm immortal. I'm holy, right? Sanctified, called out, set apart, all that. I'm holy. These are things God's given you too. You can say this to yourself. I'm not suggesting you got to do daily affirmations, but I'm just kind of getting to this point where, along with those things that I find beneficial to my faith to remind myself of in the morning, the promises of God to me and their intended results. One of the others I've been wrestling with is an idea that was said pretty crassly by, I think, Tony Robbins. And man, I wish, if any of you out there is a pastor who is like a student of Tony Robbins, as in you've studied him and you're not just like, I hate the guy, he's evil. I mean, there's some stuff he says that's like really wrong, but you have like a nuanced understanding of him. I'd really love to learn more about him. I'm so curious about his life. What a weird dude, right? But like not in like a bad way. Well, sometimes, but not. I don't mean like he's like, I don't know, a clown, right? He's a smart dude. He has tremendous insight into human potential. If you watch the Netflix documentary on him, it's amazing the way he can diagnose a human mind that he's just met, like a personality. He can just know you. It's uncanny, which actually is scary to me in certain ways. But I think I got this from him, where he talked about in his book, Money. Oh, what's it called? Money Winning the Game? No, it's not Unshakable, which is the new one. It's the one before that, Master the Game. Which, that sounds like, Pastor Fisk, why are you reading a book called Money Master the Game? Because it's a book about investment and finance strategies and how to be a good steward of the income you have so that you are not poor, right? And by poor, I mean unable to meet your debts or care for those you've been given to care for. So I took it upon myself a while back to study money a little bit, because I figured if I can learn about how to use a blog through the internet, maybe I can learn about how to use my money in a smart way, right? And that's the book I came to. And he interviews like Warren Buffett, like all these really famous people, and just distills their stuff. So it's a valuable book. He certainly then also mixes it with some of his self-help stuff, which can be good at times, but can also be a little odd. But one of the ideas that came out of that was the idea that most people have a very unhealthy relationship with money. Not in that they just want it. I mean, there's that. Greed is an issue. For the rich and the poor, greed is an issue. But that we actually have a shame relationship with money too. That those who don't want to study money, who don't think that paying attention to their stewardship of the resources God has given them for the sake of benefiting their neighbors, part of that is an ingrained belief that you're not allowed to have money, right? That is like, it's such a dirty thing that you're not supposed to have too much of it. Money's the root of all evil, right? Oh, wait a minute. Wait, slow down, right? But that's what people say, and people believe it. But that's not what the text says. It's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, the love of money is the root of all evil. The fear, love, trust of money is the root of all evil, not the money itself. He said mammon, not money. And mammon would be the whole creation, by the way, when we trust it as God. But when we don't trust it as God and receive it as God's gift, as a creature rather than the creator, suddenly it's not a bad thing at all. It's the thing we're supposed to, dominate. Like literally, go and subdue the mammon. Yeah? So, having a relationship in which you believe that you are not supposed to subdue the mammon because of why? Because of shame? Because it's too dirty for you to touch? Because if you have it, that's wrong? There's something else going on deeper in that. And I was like, as I was listening to this is like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, I was just like, that's really interesting. Yeah, look at that. And I started to mess with it in my head a little bit. Never got into my affirmations. Affirmations. I got to get a better word. My remembrances, my morning remembrances. That's better. Still not manly. The conviction training? That's not bad. That almost gets there a little bit. It is, because it's about building the convictions that I believe that I have. I am immortal. I am holy. Of whom shall I be afraid? Right? That is a conviction that I have, but I want it to be stronger. I want to be there longer and more and throughout the day and underneath everything else I think. Conviction training. I like this. Let's see if I can keep that in my head. So, in the midst of that, and trying to reckon with this fact that whatever your relationship with mammon and money is, Tony diagnosed me pretty straight up. And I was like, yeah, look at that. I actually believe I'm not allowed to have money, to have mammon. And I certainly don't, by the way, as I'm saying this, I do not want to love it. I do not want to be greedy. And that's a danger every human has. And frankly, we all fail. So we should always be in a repentant kind of war against that, flesh against spirit, all that kind of stuff. Really, I should say spirit against flesh, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think being unhealthy and ashamed of money is the answer to avoiding greed. I think freedom in the gospel, the duty toward my neighbor is the way to fight against greed. But then duty toward my neighbor would imply I can pay my debts and take care of those who need me to take care of them, right? So that would mean I would have to engage with debt. Right. And I don't know if it was here or on the video, there was a bonus podcast where we talked about how, money is debt, kind of by definition. Most things used for money ever don't have inherent value in themselves. Even gold. I mean, it's valuable in the sense that it's rare, but it is not inherently valuable. That is, you would need to know that it's rare, and you would need to know that it can potentially be used for certain medical and or scientific things, which it is in that. But there's a reason why the Native Americans really weren't too worried about the land when the settlers came, and they were all into like these beads, right? Because that's what they thought the debt was about. So, wow, that's some serious debt right there. That's some serious stored work that we can then use. And yeah, it was a cheat so far as the guys with the guns were concerned. But point being, right, money is debt that is owed. It is thereby stored value, or stored work is the good way to think about it. Stored work. Yeah? All right, so having stored work that then you can pull out to help others, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But as I wrestle with that thought and have worked it through, I realize that my own struggle with telling myself that I'm not allowed to have stored work, that somehow as a Christian that's wrong, which is not. It was deeper even than that. It wasn't just about money, greenbacks, whatever you want to call it, riches, bank accounts. That's like a surface level thing. What I realized from my own psyche wasn't just that I believed that I was not allowed to, quote unquote, be rich, whatever that means. And even though if you're listening to this, by the way, you're rich, world standards, just own it. Top 1% of the planet. You got more than one pair of shoes, you are not even moderately in poverty. Okay? World standards. So reckoning with that's okay. You're not a sinner because of that. You are a sinner for other reasons, and your sin will impact that, but you're not a sinner because of that. Reckoning with that idea, I realized the real thing that I believed I was not allowed to be was successful. Now, you might think that's a weird thing for me to say. You might think, Pastor Fisk, I'm listening to your podcast. I've watched your videos. You are successful. Okay, sure. Kinda. Not really. I mean, thank you. I appreciate you. I'm glad you find this interesting. And I pray, that it's more than just entertainment and is something that builds you up, strengthens you in conviction yourself, and establishes your ability to enact your faith in Christ in the present age as you find it at your doorstep. That's great. But it's not just about like whether someone is known or whether a video does well or what have you. It's about whether or not you're allowed to believe it's okay to succeed and acknowledge it as that. Now, let me try to give you an example. Man, we went on a tangent, didn't we? Let me try to give you an example from my own head here. I mean, but it would hopefully connect to your life in some way. Have you ever noticed how Lutheran Christians, at least, it may be this way among other Christians too, but Lutheran Christians are really bad at receiving compliments. You ever notice this? Like somebody tells them, wow, that was beautiful. You're an amazing artist. And they try to like deflect it in some way. Oh, well, yeah, this, that. Yeah, well, I didn't like this part, right? And there's some of that, which, I mean, this is what I'm getting at. Like, there's a blindness to that, actually. There's some of it which I suppose is healthy in a way, but there's some of it which is also blind. The other way people divert the focus is they try to blame Jesus for it, which is fine. Thank you, God, for the gifts you give us. But it's as if you're not one of those gifts. And that's really what I'm getting at here, right? Aren't your hands a gift from God? And who are they a gift to? Are they a gift to your neighbor? Yeah, absolutely. Are they a gift to you? Yeah, that too. So if you are able, as I am not, to have an image in your head, a picture, and bring it to life on a piece of paper or a canvas, and succeed in doing so enough that some other human being looks at it and goes, whoa, that's beautiful. You should be free to look at it again and set aside your self-critical eye, which has pushed you to be as good as you are, no question. But set it aside and look again, and try to see what they see. Can you imagine if your response was, yeah, it is beautiful? Isn't it funny how we immediately would think, well, that's an arrogant thing to say. How arrogant of you to say your own work is beautiful. Well, I mean, there's definitely that danger. I mean, no question. Arrogant people would say something like that about their bad work, their cruddy work, their bat poo work, yeah? But when we aren't able to look at something that actually is beautiful and say it's beautiful just because we made it, at that point, we're losing something very important that God has given to everybody, which is the essence of truth. If you are not allowed to be successful, then you're not allowed to be true. Now, maybe that's too big an intuitive leap. Maybe I'm jumping too far. So I'll say it again, and I'll try to say it in other ways, right? But if you are not able to look at anything you ever do in your entire life and call it good, well, then you can never do a good work. You can never make something that is valuable enough to be true. And if you can never make something that's valuable enough to be true, and nobody can then, well, then where's truth? What is it? Does it exist? Or is it just all, the line, it's postmodern poppycock, beauty's in the eye of the beholder? I mean, there's something too, we all have different tastes, but at the end of the day, when it comes to cosmic realities, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. There is such a thing as beauty, and there is such a thing as ugliness. Without question, a sunset is cosmically, universally beautiful. And to be true, a crucifixion is cosmically, universally ugly. The beauty of Jesus' crucifixion is its ugliness. My point is less that and more about the idea, and here's the real idea, the idea that success is a good work, not a bad one. And that to be successful but not be able to admit that you are successful is not a good work, but a prideful one. One that's so hungry to believe good of itself that it cannot acknowledge the good that it has done. Because the good of itself that you've learned to believe is that you should be ashamed of yourself, and that you should dwell in that shame. And that dwelling in that shame, you should not be allowed to not be ashamed. Being ashamed then, as your righteousness, prevents you from letting anything you do not be shameful. And so when someone comes and says something to you about how what you did is not shameful, but beautiful, you have to reject it to protect your self-justification by means of your own shame. And this is something that I don't think is unique to Christians. I think this is fairly common among humanity, but I know you know what I'm talking about. So recently, as I've been wrestling with it in my own heart, soul, mind, spirit, body, while we're at it, I've been adding to my, what did I call it earlier? Conviction training? Yeah. I've been trying to train myself in the conviction that success is a good work. Now, how you define success can mean a lot of different things, right? But just the idea that it's okay to do good and call it good. You notice when we talk about good works in the church, especially the arguments online, I do not even pay attention to these things anymore. But when we say good works, we seem to have something in mind we're talking about, but it's really not substantial, usually, right? It's not like an actual physical thing. It's certainly not something you've done today, right? In some non-moral way. Or maybe it's this way, that all good works are moral abstinations from evil. Like the only good you do is not doing evil. That seems kind of, I don't know. Vanilla's too nice. Grayed out. The good that God gives us to do, the good works which He has prepared for us in this created order to do, are successful things. Yeah? Hey, I'm not saying you're going to, you are God's child and the cosmos will come to you when you call upon it and grant you health, wealth, and power. No, shh, you know better than that. Don't even go there. What I'm saying is that you're allowed to believe that you're allowed to pursue success because it's a good work. And insofar and where it is a good work, you can look at it when it happens and you can thank God for it and you can call it what it is. A gift from God, sure, but also a gift from God through you, through the vocation of you, to your boss, to your employee, to your wife, to your kids, to your church. Success is a good work. And part of why this is so important to me right now, I think, aside from my own psyche on this thing, I could divert us here and say part of it is because I think, as I've wrestled with writing, and I've shared this with you a little bit before. I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee before it gets too cold. As I've wrestled with writing, and you can go back and find some of those episodes, they're mostly tagged. I've shared in various places that I want to write fiction, right? which this is just sort of it's juvenile in some senses. But see how I'm ashamed of it? Right there, I just did it. I just did it. I revealed my shame. I am ashamed of the fact that I want to write fiction. And part of me knows that from a young age, I wanted to write fiction and I wanted it to be great, right? Like enjoyable, readable, and famous. Huh? So there's some of the shame, in part with the knowledge that the pursuit of fame in and of itself is a vain and, frankly, despair creating reality. Huh? But then, so check this out. This is what I think is going on inside my head. Because of that now, I think I don't write fiction because I'm afraid I might be famous. I'm not talking like 500 views on YouTube, right? I'm talking like kaboom, New York Times. Now, I'm not saying I could do that. I'm saying that deep in my little weenie psyche, I'm afraid it could accidentally happen. Or I'm afraid it could not accidentally, but actually happen. And that if that happened, I'd have to be ashamed of it. And I don't want that shame. And so I don't write. I sabotage. I sabotage my own dream. Because I'm ashamed of it. I find other things to do. Other stuff to write, other work to pursue. Now I share this here with you, again, well, because I know you know what I'm talking about. And I don't think God made us to live in that shame. I think the freedom that we have in the knowledge of Jesus and our immortality and our holiness and what the Ten Commandments are and how they are wisdom for dutiful, designed, good work life, that we're then free to pursue good works, even should they, well, be in the midst of the valley of the shadow of death wherein there lieth temptation. To things like greed and pride and gluttony and all the rest of it. We can't escape those things by not being successful. You can't escape greed by not being rich. You can't escape greed by becoming rich either. You can't escape greed, aside from the forgiveness of sins you have in Christ and the new mind that he imparts through the blessings of his word that is awakened in you as a new man, which then must dwell side by side with that old man and put it to death every day. Not by not having it, but by calling it what it is, confessing it, being forgiven for it again, striving to hold back the hands from those things which would feed it. And maybe that's it. So we're trying not to feed our greed, but I just don't think we avoid feeding our greed by making use of shame and by not doing good things. I just don't see that as what the Bible says go do. If anything is good, if everything is beautiful, if anything is true, dwell on these things. Of course, Paul's really referring to the dogmas of God in Scripture, but those dogmas include the created order. I went a long time before I said it. The first article. I know, I'm mad, crazy dude. Okay. So this is doubly important to me. I mean, we're a long way in here, and we're certainly on a tangent. I made promises. I hope I can keep them. This is doubly important to me because I think that congregations believe they're not allowed to be successful. Now, I'm not talking about the big one on the corner down the street that believes that success is the measure of its faithfulness. I'm not talking about that either. And that's what we're trying to avoid, right? We would be ashamed if we got that big because it would mean thereby we had voided the word of God in some way. That's the only way to do it. The only way you can be successful as a congregation is to make void the word of God. We don't want that, so we won't be successful. And while I don't think anybody's actually saying that, I do think we're all thinking it. I think we're feeling it. I think we believe it. And therein, I think we sabotage our efforts to preach the gospel. I do. Now, don't get me wrong. It's okay. We'll do it in our little community. We'll do it inside the confines of our club, and we'll let the pastor go up there, and he can read his little manuscript he worked on this week, and we'll all cheer him on. Good sermon, pastor. We won't really listen much. I mean, a little here and there for a few big words and make sure those are there. But otherwise, it's not, we're not going to talk about it later or anything. It's not really going to change my life this week. No. I mean, that's dangerous, actually. So we won't do that. And when it comes to things like, voters meetings and council meetings and elders meetings and all that kind of stuff, planning. Wow. That's for those unfaithful churches. What we do is we trust in the God-given democracy, which he has put before us, and that means we trust in not changing anything, but just making sure the status quo sticks here forever because it's worked so far. So it must keep working. And in that, we're content to come and go week in and week out, seeing the same people, good, God-fearing Christians who are believing the good, actual word of God that is actually being preached, but all the time allowing our shame to stop us from repeating those words to others. Don't you find that interesting? If you disagree with me, that's cool. I don't think you can disagree with me with the results here, right? You can disagree with my trying to diagnose the cause. But I don't think you can disagree with the results. There was a conversation that we had recently, me and a couple guys here, and I'm trying to get those who I think can handle it ready for God to answer one of my prayers. And here's the prayer. So, I do that. I do my conviction training every day, and then I pray. I pray according to category. I got 4 categories, 4 quadrants of my life, areas of focus, whatever you want to call them, vocations. I pray in those directions, and in some of them, it's a different prayer every day, and some of them, it is constant. And the first prayer I pray constantly beneath the prayer that St. Paul Lutheran Church in Rockford, Illinois, which has been here for 130 years, 131 now, would stand another 130 more as an outpost, wink, wink, of word and sacrament ministry, and Jesus Christ raising the dead. I pray that, and then I ask for, very specifically, 2 things. Dear Jesus, I, Pastor Fisk of this church, would like, in this church, more tattoos and more babies. And you might immediately be like, Pastor Fisk, Christians can't have tattoos. Come on. I love you. Yeah, and we can't eat clamfish either. Clamfish, is that such a thing? Shellfish. We can't eat shellfish either. If you're going to do that, you're going to do it. You got to grow your hair long. You need an Ark of the Covenant. I mean, it's the old law. Yeah? If you want to make an argument from creation, that somehow it is self-mutilation, I mean, again, what's that eyeshadow doing? What about the piercing of the ears, right? What about the foods that we eat that are made of plastic that are killing us, right? So, I mean, I love you. God bless you. But really, if that's where we're going to stand on and die is no tattoos. And here's the thing. Here's why I pray this. Okay, I live in Rockford. You might not have been to Rockford. If you live in Illinois, you don't go to Rockford. It's a neat little city. But people don't come here because it's kind of a violent little city. Not exactly what I'd call middle class all the way around. Not really a retirement area, yeah? But you know what's here? There are so many 30 and 40-year-olds with tattoos. Oh, there's so many of them. Nah, Christian, non-Christian, all over. I see more tattoos, man. They are everywhere. And so if we're going to draw this line in the sand about how Christians don't have tattoos, and tell me I can't say I want more tattoos in my congregation, then I can't go talk to anybody in Rockford. You hear what I'm saying? Because that was my point. My point was not that I want Grandpa Schmidt to go get tattooed. That'd be interesting. But that was not my point. My point is that I want these people with these tattoos who we would not dream of seeing walk in our door to walk in our door. I took a picture. I know it's kind of naughty. I was at Starbucks and I saw somebody. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I just took a picture. This lady was working on her computer. It's a Mac. So she's not that poor. She's got a Mac. Working on her computer. Something. Mid-afternoon, 3 o'clock. I mean, maybe she was just surfing, YouTube? I don't know. But it looked like she was working on her computer. And she had a tattoo on her face. I'd say a good quarter of her right cheek tattooed. Now, I don't know what kind of circles you've run in. Yeah. And I haven't been in all of them. But I'm pretty sure that by the point you've tattooed your face, there's a lot of places you've been that most people don't go. There's a lot of I don't know if it's pain. Pain is probably a part of that. There's a lot of shame. So even if it is, mutilation, which well, maybe it is. The thing is, I don't want that person in my church. I do. Not for me. For her. I want to know how. And I want to believe it's possible. I want to believe that my congregation can be successful, at the very least, achieving the point at which she hears about the resurrection of Jesus. And yes, you're right. Pastor Fisk, I could have just gone right up and walked and started a conversation right there. You're right. I could have. You'll have to forgive me for, first, being an introvert. So that's hard for me. I'm not good at that. I'm working on it, but I'm not good at it. And then second, as an introvert, wanting to respect other people's space. Because I know what I would do if somebody walked up and started talking to me at a Starbucks while I had my headphones on and was working on something. I'd smile and be nice and inwardly think, can you please go away, all the way through whatever they said until they left. That's what I would do. Because that's the introvert in me. And so, there's 50% introverts in the world out there, by the way. Don't get on your high horse just because you're not one of us. Go read a book called Quiet and be challenged a little bit. Yeah, Quiet. It's about the power of introversion. And frankly, we are we're an oppressed class. Victimized even. It's a good read. It's a good read. And there's a lot of us out there. And so I tend to just kind of own it and act like one. And then respect people one. And if you want me to come up and talk to you, well, then come up and talk to me, right? And yeah, I'm going to be an introvert the whole time. But I'll be nice. I promise. So I didn't. Because to me, just talking to her, that's not the point. The point is, I want to know why my congregation doesn't believe we can. We don't believe we could. Or that she would. Because we don't believe success is a good work. I think. So I pray for tattoos and babies because I want us to stop being ashamed of what we believe. And stop letting our shame sabotage our conversations about what we do so that we never actually try to give what we believe to others. And babies should be pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you don't have babies in the church, you don't have a church in a few years. It's kind of the way it is. You need marriages, you need kids. It's a good work to do that, by the way. To get married, have kids, good work. Yeah. To intentionally not get married, not have kids, it's not a bad work. It's not necessarily a good work, depending on your reasoning there. Because the one that's commanded is the one that's commanded. And this is not to say if you're single or you're given that particular gift of celibacy for your entire life, that should be demeaned. In fact, we should laud and cherish you as special people who God has given as effectively prayers, right? People freed to pray more often. But the vast majority of people are not that. And the vast majority of singleness in 21st century America is not that. But it's actually, are you waiting for it? Did you know it was coming? It's actually greed, love of mammon, hunger for success. But not the kind that can admit it. You can't admit it's hunger for success. Just trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. That's why you're not going to get married and have kids. Oh, okay. Hey, we're friends here. I'm just being snotty. But I know that my kids will not have congregations with buildings if we don't have more people. It's that simple. I don't care what congregation you go to now and how wealthy it all looks. You give it 35 years at the rate we're going. Demographic numbers guarantee there's no buildings that say church on the outside that have Christianity on the inside. So I pray for babies, tattoos and babies. And I had a conversation again with some of my members about how that's my prayer. And what do? We immediately began talking about how bad tattoos are. Which worries me. Because how are we going to talk to the people who have tattoos about Jesus if all we can do is talk about how bad their tattoos are? I mean, if I walked up to you and was like, hey, man, how you doing? You should come to my church, but that tattoo, that was stupid. Why'd you do that? Right? If I did that, I mean, are they going to listen? Well, the Holy Spirit converts people. Yes, he does. He does. But your being a jerk doesn't. Right? So what you're doing is you're testing the Spirit at that point in the wrong way, not the way John says to. You're testing the Spirit by putting God to the test and saying, I don't have to think about what God has said about me loving my neighbor, and God will work anyway. Well, it's true. Where he decides to make that rain come down, that's a different thing. Let the reader understand. So I wonder, what happens if one Sunday morning or one Wednesday night, a local Rockfordian with a tattoo on her face who happened to stumble upon, I don't know, a copy of Echo left somewhere randomly in the city, reads it, goes, my goodness, Jesus. Wait a minute. This guy's here, and then comes to the church, right? She walks in with tattoo in the face, and we all just stammer. Right? We stare. I want us to be ready, man. I don't want us to just be ready. I want us to want that. Because if we don't, I just don't see how. I'm not just talking Rockford and my congregation. I'm talking all of us. I don't see how we make it. Germans are a growing minority. Yes, Swedes too. If we don't find a way to get outside of our need to hang on to our culture and the rules of our little internal LCMS culture, I am selfish here. I want my kids to go to a faithful church. But I also, have you looked at these people that are out there? There's a window in my congregation. There's not enough, frankly. They put these plastic colored sheets over all the windows, like when they built it in the late 70s, early 80s. You know what I'm talking about? They're like, we're too cheap to do stained glass, but hey, this new like layered plastic thing, we can put that up. That looks like a stained glass window without any art in it at all. We'll just cover all the windows with that. So, you've seen what I'm talking about. So in the front of the congregation, the sanctuary, which is one of these A-frames, and I know I have at least one of my members who may listen to this who says it's a beautiful building. By the standards of architecture in the annals of history, it is a perfect reflection of the decline of Western civilization at the time it was built. Two books for you. State of the Arts by Gene Veith. That one's deep. That's heady. You can also get the same concepts out of Saving Leonardo, which is a study in art history. It reflects the philosophical zeitgeist, spirit of the age in which it was built, and it is one that was on a hell-bent rejection of beauty. It was built by art that wanted to not be beautiful. It was dismantling form. So you go into like Cubism, right? Van Gogh, all this kind of stuff. Dismantling form to its geometric basics. And you can say, oh, it was just trying to see the beauty of those forms. But no, that was it. He was dismantling the forms into forms that made it hard to see. And it didn't stop there. It kept dismantling further. This is not distinct from what I mentioned offhandedly earlier about marriage and man and woman. The dismantling of the forms as realities did not stop with taking old sanctuary art and style and making it into nothing but its cuboid objects. So, you'll have to forgive me. There's also no intentional crucifix built in the building, which, just fits with the pietistic times. But we got one now. Don't worry. We don't have a big one, though. We got this big empty cross. It needs a big Jesus on it. Behind the big empty cross at the front of the A-frame church, there's like a little inset space. And there were these windows there, square windows, about, 8 or so, stacked on top of each other on each side. and they had these plastic things in them. And one of the other things about A-frames is kind of tough. They don't light well. I mean, no matter what you do, even with like really good lighting techniques, they don't light well. The shape and where the shadows go, the unavailability of actual windows, it makes for a bit of a dank look. It's hard to undo. Even with your daylight light bulbs. In fact, I would contend they've made it look worse. And we'd be better off with candlelight. So it doesn't light well, and then they put these plastic sheets over it. So the front of the thing was just completely, it's so dark up there. And there was a cleaning day last spring. We had about 3, 4, or 5 families show up for cleaning day. And they decided to start, cleaning. And they're looking at these windows, and they realized, hey, we can. I thought these were like built-in plastic windows, right? These pop off, Pastor. Can we clean behind that? I was like, sure, clean behind that. And oh my goodness, the bugs. There had to be 30 years worth of bugs back there. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so they cleaned it all off, got them all off that front, and then I love it. I mean, I really like conversation about change in general before it happens. But again, I can't remember who came up to me, but someone came up to me and they said, Pastor, we're not putting them back. And part of me got really happy, but part of me was like, "Oh, I'm gonna catch heat for this." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if can you see this? Like in my head, I actually want this to happen. I'll admit it, I did. But in my head, I also know the danger, Will Robinson, of change in the church without permission. And so I'm like, I don't know if we should do this at all. This is a really bad idea. And so what came out of my mouth was, well, I mean, if you really think it's important and a good idea, normally I would want to like take our time on this kind of thing. But if you really think so and don't mind, letting other people know that you did it, not me, then that's cool. We can do that. That's fine. I'm okay with it. Not going to hurt me. And I was kind of pleased. Almost everyone, actually, there were a few people who heard that we did it and weren't happy. But then as soon as they saw it, they're like, I had no idea it could be this bright in here. So this is all set up to the story. So now what happens because of this is that I sit during the hymns in a chair behind the pulpit. And while nobody else can see out of these windows, because they're ducked or they're hidden into the bend of the building. Like there's like an inset space and they're on the part that you wouldn't be able to see from the pew, generally speaking. The light comes in and illuminates the area, but there is no viewing of the grass outside. Well, where I sit, I look right out this thing. Across this big spread of grass that they bought all this land because they were going to grow, because the city was going to go in this direction economically. It never happened for good reasons. I don't think it's ever going to happen for good reasons, both in terms of what kind of land is there and the fact that the city didn't want a freeway. And so now the freeway is going around us way on the other side of the city, and that's where all the growth is happening. Anyhow, I sit there and I look out at this big stretch of land that we bought, which is it's pretty. It's beautiful. Across the way, there's a cornfield, so the farms kind of go off past there. We're right on the edge of the city. And that intersection there is a pretty big one for this part of the city, which is not very populous, but a pretty big one, because if you're going to go around the city, that's the way you go, rather than going through it. And it kind of loops down and hits a little highway bypass that's, 4 or 5 miles down that way. So all through every hymn and any of the liturgy that one of my aides is doing, I sit there and I have to watch, because I can see the grass and I can see that intersection. And what I see is cars. Yeah? Cars. Trucks. Stop, go. Stop, go. There's one more. There's one more. It's Sunday morning. There's one more. Who are they? Where are they going? Why are they not here? And I can't get it out of my head. I can't escape it. It's there in front of my face. There's all those people. Some of them are going to church, to be sure. To be sure. Not all of them. I remember in North Dakota, Oaks, North Dakota, a very pious town. A couple of significantly large churches, generally a moral area, a lot of Catholics, a lot of Lutherans, frankly. I remember talking with the Methodist pastor there, and he pointed out to me that in this town of 5,000 or so, maybe 8,000 with the surrounding region. On any given Sunday, it was, and I'm going to lose the number, so I don't remember exactly, but on any given Sunday, it was like 20% were in church. 20%. I mean, you walk around town, you think everyone goes to church, the way people talk. 20%, 30%. Think about that. Now, I don't know about your town. You can do the demographic study and find out. It's a big number. And yeah, some of them don't want to hear the gospel. They're going to reject it no matter what. But does that allow us to believe it's not possible to be successful in converting them to the gospel? Or is that how we should start mission? To believe that it won't work? Is that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying change the word of God so that it works. I'm no revivalist. I'm no mystic. I am no free will. What's the right word? Anthropocentric soteriologist? Oh, I was right, but I didn't say it well. I am no anthropocentric soteriologist. I'm a confessor of the Reformation. I repeat it. And I'm wondering why we don't do it more. And louder. And outside of our clubs. And why are we not willing to jeopardize our comfort or what we like for those people in those cars, for those people with their tattoos downtown on Friday night? A lot of them got babies too. They're young. They might not be married, but they're kind of common married. Did Jesus die for them? I think he did. I want the words to get there. And so I am conviction training myself now every morning to say, success is a good work. Not that it's okay to be successful. Success is a good work. We should pursue it. Should we pursue it for ourselves? No. Should we pursue it and look back on it in pride and say, oh, what a good boy am I? No. Will we? Probably. Should we repent of that? Yes. But you can only repent of it after you've believed that it was a good work you tried to do. I tried to do a good work, O Lord, my flesh got in the way. Please forgive me and ensure that the work which was nonetheless done benefits the human in front of me. Maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, oh, I'm even going to giggle. Am I the Mad Hatter? I don't know. Maybe. So what did we not do? Anything? Well, that was the last thing. That was all out of, I'm like, there's 4 things we're going to do, and this last one, and then I did it. And it was an hour. Oh, I think. What time is it? Oh, my goodness. Hold on. I got my text messages here. I'm going to make you listen, since I'm probably going to keep going. Oh, I need to text my very helpful administrative assistant. I'm going to pause it. Oh, I can't. Pause, where are you? Pause. All right, I'm back. And here's the thing. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king. And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And what he did was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For because of the anger of the Lord, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he cast them out from his presence. In the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with all his army against Jerusalem and laid siege to it. They built siege works all around on the 9th day of the 4th month. That's just a few months in, by the way. The famine was so severe that there was no food for the people of the land. Then a breach was made in the city, and all the men of war fled and went out from the city by night by way of the gate between the 2 walls by the king's garden. Yet the Chaldeans were around the city. The army of the Chaldeans pursued the king and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. And all his army was scattered from him. And they captured the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the land of Hamath, and he passed sentence on him. That was a long time coming. And my guess is you don't remember much of what any of that means. You probably remember the name Nebuchadnezzar. I hope so. I don't know what hole you grew up under. A hole. You grew up under a hole. I said that. I did. You got to know, I am not the sharpest cookie in the forest. Yeah. So just let that be a thing. I don't know what rock you grew up under if you don't know who Nebuchadnezzar is, but Zedekiah, probably not as much. And definitely Jehoiakim, you're like, wait, what? Huh? Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to try to fix here. It's been a long time coming. The kingdom of Israel, as ruled over by David, has been two kingdoms for quite a while. Judah and Israel. The story of how that happened under the reign of Solomon's son, moron, Rehoboam, and then the rebellious Jeroboam of the family of Ephraim, by the way, which means a Josephite. Oh, yeah. So anyway, that's happened a long time ago. A lot has happened on the sides of both kingdoms. There's been ups, there's been downs. There's been faithlessness, more or less, in the north, and a lot of faithlessness in the south as well. That's Judah in the south. But the north got so bad that God finally said, the golden cow thing, and, worshiping Neshustan, that snake on the pole that wasn't really for worshiping, that I made you make. Yeah, that's enough of that. I'm going to send, who Assyria is, right? From Nineveh, that greatest power of the ancient world. I mean, there's really two. There's Egypt and Assyria, but Egypt's been kind of weak for a long time. So I'm going to send Assyria. They're the real deal. They're going to put like hooks in your noses and stuff and to tear you off into the dispersion. They're going to disperse you. They're going to divide your families. They're going to make you marry people you aren't, able to talk to and have new kids as slaves in other lands and thereby destroy your culture. So that's what I'm going to do because, well, frankly, you don't want me not to do it. You've said as much. You'd rather worship the metal stuff. Huh? So that's happened for a while ago. But Judah didn't quite have that happen yet. But they're getting there. They're getting there. And not exactly the same time as the wiping away of northern Israel, but not too long after, there's a guy named Manasseh who becomes king. You might remember that name. I mean, he's also one of the sons of Jacob, different guy, same name. Manasseh becomes king of Judah, and he is so evil. He is absolutely the most evil, probably, that there ever was. It says this. It says he did great evil. He built altars to all the gods, including Baal, in the temple courts. None of this high places stuff for me. I'm bringing these gods into Yahweh's temple and getting rid of him. He burned his own sons as sacrifices. Now, you read between the lines, that means in the temple courts, too. He employed witches, shamans, necromancers, set up an Asherah inside the temple itself. And because of this, Yahweh sends a prophet who says this, unnamed prophet, by the way. He says, because Manasseh has committed these abominations, more evil than the Amorites who were before him, behold, I am bringing upon Jerusalem much disaster. And I will wipe Jerusalem as one wipes a dish. And I will forsake my heritage, and they shall become spoil to their enemies. Now, wiping the dish is kind of that's pretty, no pun intended, slick there. That's rough. You're getting rid of it when you're wiping it, right? But the bit about being more evil than the Amorites, I mean, the Amorites, these are the Canaanites. These are those who God said, devote them to fire, don't keep their cows, don't keep their clothes. I don't want anything to be near you, lest you become like them and do their wicked worship practices, which I'll tell you, it was more than just a trap set on the altar. It was human sacrifice on the altar. But see, they'd gotten to that point. They brought it all the way back. So God says, I'm done. I'm done. Covenant's over. No more. I am no longer going to be the God of you, this people. And what we should really ask immediately is the most important questions, why we should know these things. Wait a minute here. What happens to the promise that the son of David will sit upon the throne and rule from there as the heir to Abraham's promises, as the fulfillment of Eve's promises, right? There'll come one born of woman. He'll crush the head of our enemy. This will happen through the loins of Abraham. He will be thereby a circumcised man, because that points to the shedding of his blood. And he will, by shedding his blood, be crowned king with an everlasting dominion, like unto David's only greater. What about that? And that has to come from David's line. Well, that's kind of the thing, right? But this hasn't happened yet. But just know, that's why this is important. That's why this is super important. How does that happen without the Ark of the Covenant? Well, the Ark of the Covenant was a shadow to the side to point to where this was going to happen, but frankly, as Paul says in Galatians, the promises came before that. Even that to David, which was made separate from the Sinaitic covenant, and so forth. In any case, okay, we're going to get there. So Manasseh, a crazy thing, and this is a little obscure, but the Bible does say that he was captured by Assyria, and while in prison there repents, and then is allowed to return and be king again, and he tries to reform some things, but it doesn't take. So he dies, and his son Amon succeeds him as king, and Amon is just as bad. So, again, if Manasseh came back and said, hey, Amon, don't do this, Amon's like, whatever, Dad, I saw you smoke, I'm going to smoke too, right? And so he does. He only lives for 2 years, though. Apparently, he was really bad at being king, like not just like a false teacher kind of thing, but he was killed by his own servants. So, I mean, you got to be kind of bad at being king to have your servants kill you, right? And then the people, when they hear about this, they rise up and they kill the servants who killed him. And then they make his 8-year-old son king. And his 8-year-old son is named Josiah. Now, Josiah is a name you should probably know. Josiah is that reformer who his servants found the Bible effectively in the basement of the temple. And they were like, hey, King, we found this book. And it talks about that building. And the stuff in the building right now, that Asherah pole and all that, that's not what's supposed to be there according to this God. And this God like smote Egypt and stuff, like parted a sea. And there was this thing about us having to like serve him or he would cast us out of the land. Like, this sounds bad. You should hear it read. So he does. He hears it read. He's like, oh my goodness, that was bad. We're gonna read everybody this. They read everybody this. Whole nation like is compelled to repentance. They reestablish the good worship. They sanctify the temple again. I mean, everything is put back the way it's supposed to be. Although the people don't necessarily believe it, high places are not entirely removed. That's the good of Josiah. He reigned 31 years, but then he dies kind of tragically. And it's because of a unique set of circumstances, and the scholars will argue about whether he was right or wrong. We don't have a word from the Lord on this. But Assyria, that great ancient power that we mentioned earlier, that really had no rival in the ancient world for a good 500,000 years or so. Nineveh, that great city that takes days to walk across it, which, again, old liberal scholars would scoff at that, but archaeology doesn't scoff at it anymore. That was a big city. They're weakening. As an empire, they are having a whole lot of trouble. And it's not unconnected to what happened under Hezekiah's reign. Hezekiah was the father of Manasseh. You remember this. The city gets surrounded. Jerusalem's surrounded by the Assyrians. And this is part of their unbelief as well, and God's calling them to repentance, and Hezekiah prays. Yeah. And at the same time, you have Elisha in the city with his servant, and his servant's all freaked out. Rabshakeh is outside shouting things, right? He's shouting in Hebrew about how God's not going to save you. God sent us to do this to you. Elisha says, hey, look again to his servant. And there's armies of fire beings surrounding everything. And that night, after Hezekiah's prayer and the people's repentance, those fire beings, we call them angels, they come down, they slaughter the armies of Assyria. And the king of Assyria, whose name escapes me at the moment, I'm not going to go look it up. Oh, it's such a good name, though. What is it? Oh, I can't remember. He goes back. I mean, after this, he's so demolished as his army, he basically has to retreat back to Nineveh, and his sons kill him while he's worshiping his God. That wasn't the end, or that was the beginning of the end. And then to the northeast, there's this other thing happening, which is, it does have a biblical connection, which is part of why I mentioned it. I also mention it because I really like these people. Like, I would have hated these people in real life. But in terms of fantasy fiction world, these guys are awesome. These guys are nuts, right? You might know the name Genghis Khan, and that kind of almost captures it, but not really. He was kind of a nice guy. He was a bit civilized, yeah? He built cities eventually, or his sons did. Now, these guys are before that. But they're the horse lords of Asia, the plains and steppes of Asia. And, people who, it's not like the Riders of Rohan so much, right? It's more like the Dothraki in Game of Thrones. Barbarians upon the grassy sea, who, by tribe and warlord, slaughter each other until they get a horde big enough to slaughter other people. And, putting their babies on the horses from infancy, so that they can ride so well they can shoot from the horse backwards and hit the target every time, which means that against your Roman military legions or what have you, they can kind of just get close, shoot, and ride away. And you can't catch them. You can't catch them. So everyone always feared the Scythians. Everyone feared them. But it seems that these Scythians are really giving Assyria a hard time on the northeast. Now, I said that there's a biblical connection. It's the word's in the Bible, Scythian. It's in the Bible. Huh? Paul, in proclaiming the total ability of the gospel to save everybody, says that there is neither male nor female, Jew nor Greek, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free. Remember that? Yeah, Scythians. So they were still around by Paul's day, but not quite the same way. But they were, because eventually Genghis Khan comes, right? So this is a culture that in some ways hasn't changed for like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. It's kind of crazy. Way back when, though, I mean, they were doing like head bindings where they would bind your head as a baby, if you're a male, to make it look oblong and freakish so that you could be more terrifying when you fought people. That kind of thing, you know. The people you'd want to have move in next door. So Assyria is having some trouble with them. And at the same time, there is a kingdom called Media Persia. It's not really called Media Persia. There's a kingdom called the Medes. They're pushing back a little bit. And then what really happens is that out of the blue, this little backwoods place called Babylon just turns into a world power and demolishes them. They weren't really a backwoods, but they weren't, like, no one really saw Babylon coming. Not this way. But it hasn't happened yet. Assyria is just weakening. And so Pharaoh down in Egypt, his name was Necho at the time, Pharaoh Necho, he thinks, I can just be the one who comes out of nowhere and surprises Babylon. I mean, hey, everyone knows Egypt will rise again, right? How can it not? It is the other ancient power, and for too long it has been under the thumb of Assyria. So I'm going to rise up, and I'm going to fight back, and I will demolish Assyria. And as I go, hey, Judah, King Josiah, would you like to join with me, the new world power? What do you say? Put it right there. We'll be number one, number two. Yeah, you can stand beside me. Well, over there, Egyptians, we don't eat with anybody else. But you can be kind of in my eyesight. And I'll point to you and be like, yeah, that guy too. Yeah? High five. That kind of, oh, don't touch me. Pharaoh Necho says, let's do this together. And Josiah says no. He says, no, we're not going to do this together. And the reason is because I think we should not fight against Assyria. They're the world power right now. And they might be weak, but they will not forget what you have done, or we would have done, and they will destroy us. So I'm not going to fight against them. And so Pharaoh's like, well, okay, I get that. That's cool, man. You want to do it your way? That's fine. So I'm going to just kind of pass by here, though, okay? I'm going to go do it. And Josiah goes, no. I'm not going to let you. I'm going to stop you. Now, was this wise? I don't know. Did he talk to a prophet? I don't know. It doesn't go well, though. I know that. And Pharaoh actually says, hey, man, don't do this. We don't need to fight. Like, he comes back. He's like, hey, dude, we really don't need to fight. It's fine. You just go stay in your city. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to fight them, destroy them, come back. I'll still be nice to you. And Josiah says, now we're going to fight right now. He rides out to meet him in battle at a place called the Valley of Megiddo. Now that should sound familiar to you. The Valley of Megiddo, from which we get the New Testament word Armageddon. Except there's a problem. The New Testament word Armageddon, it's actually a Hebrew word, means the mountain of Megiddo, and there is no such thing. There's only the valley. What do you do with that? Now, there's a lot there, really. But in short, well, the mountain of Megiddo is like unto the valley of Megiddo. What happened in the valley of Megiddo? A righteous king who brought reform to the temple of God and established a trust in all his promises, sitting on David's throne, was slain. That happened at Armageddon, too, at the mountain of Calvary. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. That's some Revelation stuff, but nonetheless, Josiah is struck by an archer unexpectedly. Wasn't necessarily even supposed to happen that way. And falls in his chariot, and his chariot drives away, and they take him back to Jerusalem. Is he dead before he gets there? We're not exactly sure. But we do know that one of his sons is made king more or less about the time he arrives or slightly before that. One of his sons, he's got 3. Keep that in mind. 3 sons. Oh, My 3 Sons. I don't even remember how that song goes. I used to watch a lot of My 3 Sons on Nick at Night. Man, I wasted my life. Anyhow, I mean, I was like 8. I wasted my 8-year-old life. That was way better things to be doing, even before the internet, when you're 8, than watching My 3 Sons on Nick at Night. What a waste. Anyhow, Josiah leaves behind 3 sons. The first is named. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up here. This is where it gets fun. Yeah, this is where the Game of Thrones stuff really does come in. I'm not talking like, dragons. I'm talking intrigue and families that make for good storytelling. Let's just say it that way. So he's got 3 sons, and before or right around the time his dead body is being pulled back to the city, the people have made one of the sons king, but it's not his firstborn son. It's his second-born son. His name is Jehoahaz. And you can kind of understand this, because Jehoahaz, at least according to Jeremiah, chapter 32, he's a great man of vigor. Vigor, yeah? Like those magic potions from, now I'm going to lose it. What a great game it was, though. The first game's underwater. It's like steampunky. Oh, I can't believe I can't think of this. I'm not going to look it up because I should know this. Oh, what is it? It's so good. And I have the picture of the guy falling and catching the girl that you've seen some places. Oh, what is it? You know it. You're yelling at this. Yeah, I know you are. You're yelling at it. I'm sorry. Vigor. Vigor's like a magic potion that you take. Wait, can I think of his name? Is it AC that he writes? I can't remember. Carson? I want to say it's Carson, but it's not Carson. Anyhow, he takes these potions, he gets strong. Vigor means strong. That's the point of my story that was not a story. Jehoahaz is a man of vigor. And Ezekiel in chapter 19 calls him a lion. So this is a guy who the people think is going to save them. Why? Because they just are in the middle of losing a battle against Egypt. That's why. They need someone to go out and lead the fight. So they make Jehoahaz king. How does his brother Eliakim feel about this? The older brother, the one who should have been king. How does he feel? Not real good. More of that in a moment. But Jehoahaz, he goes out and leads the people to fight. And within a 3-month standoff or so, he is defeated, captured, put in fetters, sent to Egypt, will eventually die there in prison. And then Necho finishes coming to Jerusalem and taking it and installs, wait for it, Eliakim, firstborn son, as king. Now, why would he do that? I got 2 options. One is that Eliakim is weak and so not likely to be a problem. Now, the challenge with that is what this guy will do later in life. The other is that Eliakim was part of the fall of his brother Jehoahaz, and maybe there was a little more going on. Some information didn't get passed on about where Necho would be at a certain time. I don't know. What's the stuff for the fight in King's Landing, the fire stuff in the water, right? That stuff just didn't show up when it needed to show up. Yeah. Everybody got tricked to being in the wrong place at the wrong time so that the light of the 7 could shine upon them. Right? I don't know. Intrigue? Maybe. Maybe not. But the guy who kills the father and the second-born son takes the firstborn son and puts him on the throne of Judah as his vassal. That guy's name officially is Eliakim, but you don't need to remember that one. You need to remember his new name, Jehoiakim. But the problem with this, oh, it's such a pain. Why? Why, God? Well, why is because his name is not Jehoiakim. His name is Yahweh will establish, pronounced in Hebrew, which comes off as Jehoiakim. And it sounds very different to the Hebrew than other names that we'll have to deal with later, but in English it sounds exactly the same. And that's the problem. Yeah? So that gets confusing, and that's part of why people don't remember anything that goes on at this point. Yeah? What we're going to do is we're going to call him J1. J1, like J-Dog, that kind of thing, right? The J-Stir. But he can't even do that. It's number 1. He's J number 1. Yeah? Jehoiakim. Kim, like Kim Jong-il. That was bad. Like Kim Jong-il. That's better. That's J1. Firstborn son of Josiah. Yahweh will establish is his name. Seems to be chosen as a name in direct opposition to Jeremiah's prophecies that any alliance with Egypt will re-invoke the prophecies spoken against Manasseh about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. You see this in Jeremiah 25, verses 9 to 11. So follow me here. Although we don't know that Josiah stood against Egypt because of Jeremiah's words, it would seem that Jeremiah's words were around and that the son who follows him on the throne ignored them. And so he reinvokes judgment on Judah once and for all by establishing a covenant with Egypt and taking the name Yahweh will establish. Jeremiah's words don't mean anything. Jeremiah's a false teacher. Huh? This guy's not only pagan, though. I mean, he doesn't really care about Yahweh. He's not only a pagan, he viciously oppresses his own people to raise the tribute that he owes Necho, while also making sure to provide for himself a life of ostentation. You know, Prince John, the phony king of England. That was poorly said, Jonathan. Should I rewind it? Or do you find it funnier to mock me when I fail? Prince John, the phony king of England, taxing the people. Where's Robin Hood when you need him? All that kind of stuff. So the people are starving. He's doing well, sending the money down to Egypt. He reigns for 8 years. But in the 4th year, Necho, king of Egypt, finds himself in trouble. Because, well, it's not that Assyria found out and came back and was angry. It's that Assyria got destroyed by Babylon. Wait, where'd that come from? Who were they? What's going on? Nabopolassar? Who's that? The armies of Nabopolassar, king of Babylon, demolish Assyria. Unheard of. Impossible. But Assyria will never rise again. Modern day Syria is not it. It will never rise again. Greatest empire of the ancient world, gone for good within a couple years. Man, we don't even know how entirely, but we do. I mean, you got the Scythian thing, you got the Medes kind of over there, and then you got Babylon just crushes them. And right after the lead general, first son of Nabopolassar, Nebuchadnezzar by name, finishes all this destruction of Assyria, he looks south and says, well, you know, Assyria used to reign all of that too, but we could if we tried. And so he comes south, and what's south? Well, it's Egypt. And so who does Necho find himself in conflict with? Armed battle? Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nabopolassar has said, I got enough of this. I'm going back to Babylon. I'm going to get crowned emperor of everything, king of kings, right? And you, Nebuchadnezzar, you can handle all of this. I'm going to enjoy the good life for a while. I'm getting old. He was pretty old. So Nebuchadnezzar goes down, and Necho's got to go fight against him. And they meet at a place called Carchemish, where, as the ancient texts say, Nebuchadnezzar smote Necho. He smote Necho. Egypt is now completely subjected to Chaldea, or Babylon. And then, well, we're in the area. What's this mountain city over here? What do they call it? Zion? Yeah. Oh, Jerusalem? Yeah, let's go over there too. So they come and they surround the city. And Jehoiakim, J1, I almost said it. I almost got it wrong. Firstborn son of Josiah. He submits. He sees the troops come and he says, all right, it's fine. Hey, you come on in. Oh, you want to see that temple? You want to take that gold? Go for it. Totally cool. Oh, you're going to take the older and good-looking, wise and clever sons of all of my nobility? Not a problem. It's all right. We're friends. I trust you. It'll be good. I'll send you money too. No problem. Yeah? So take care. Check will be in the mail every month on time. I'm never late on a payment. And so off Nebuchadnezzar goes with many of the items from the temple itself and 10,000 people, including the most able-bodied of the entire next generation, among whom are people like Daniel, Ezekiel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all that. Nebuchadnezzar also has to leave pretty quickly. He learns his dad got home, got coronated, I don't know, drank a bit, had a good time, party, died. Old age, it doesn't seem to be any foul play, but he died. And so, so dad just became emperor. We overthrew the former power. Everything's kind of an upheaval. I should be king next. I need to get there. So he literally crosses the Arabian desert to get there. He cheats, right? He does not go the normal path. He makes great haste to get back. Yeah, but no sooner does J1 learn of this. This guy might not even be emperor. He comes back. There's someone else there. They don't know who we are. Yeah, we're going to get ready to rebel. we're not going to let this stand. So he starts planning a rebellion. He does it mainly by keeping it in people's sight. He starts a holiday that's the opposite of the 4th of July. It's the 4th of not July. It's Dependence Day. Yeah, he starts Dependence Day so that the people can remember how wrong it is to be under a foreign king. Now, as this little rebellion and the lack of payments make their way back to Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, who did get installed as emperor, is a little busy. He's got others pushing back as well, like the actual Medes for sure. And so he doesn't come right back to Jerusalem. Instead, he sends some of the other locals who have not rebelled, Moabites, Arameans, Ammonites. They start attacking Jerusalem, and they really do a good job of it. They put Judah into a war-torn state. The people are not really safe, food, money, all that. Economy's not really thriving, and at times they're mounting efforts against Jerusalem, but Jerusalem's pretty strong, so it never falls. It never falls. And so Nebuchadnezzar eventually says, okay, I've handled the Medes, and they're going to be quiet till I die at least. Time to go against Judah. He brings all of Chaldea down against Judah with the full intent of, well, payback. But 3 months before he gets there, so he's left. He's en route, but no airplanes. So 3 months before he gets there, something happens. We're not entirely confident. So there's a couple of different possible answers. I'm just going to give you the one that I think makes the most sense. Okay? What appears to happen is that there's another one of these skirmishes, and it's close to Jerusalem, outside the walls, not too far away. And it goes well for Judah in some way. They win, right? They've got the walls, but they're winning, and they're winning so well that it can be a rout, and they can really destroy some stuff. So Jehoiakim, J1, he leads or goes with the troops outside the city walls to make sure they can rout this enemy, and instead, oops, somebody killed him. Oh, there he is. He's dead. Oh, wait a minute. We're getting routed. That's the king's body over there. We got to get to it. No, we can't. Oh, we're dead. And the few that aren't dead and made it back to the city couldn't get the body. Isn't it funny that Jeremiah had just recently prophesied that he would die and never be buried? J1, yeah. No. It's as if Jeremiah's a prophet. No one believes it in the city. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. He keeps doing it. He's like, well, this is what's going to happen. And it does. Meanwhile, J1 does have an 18-year-old son, J1 Jr. Really? So J1, Jehoiakim, this guy's name is Jehoiachin. It doesn't mean Yahweh establishes, it means Yahweh fortifies. So that sounds much different. Yahweh establishes, Yahweh fortifies, right? It sounds much different to us, but it doesn't in the Hebrew. So Jehoiachin, J2. This guy's the grandson of Josiah by Josiah's firstborn. Ezekiel speaks of him well as well. He calls him a young lion who devoured men and seized their widows, and the land was appalled at the sound of his roaring, until with hooks they put him in a cage and brought him to Babylon. Now, when I said speaks well of him, I should have caveated that a little bit. Calls him strong. But this bit about seizing their widows after he kills guys, I mean, that's not like he put them in a nursing home, right? You know what I'm saying? Like harem, that kind of thing. So he's a bit of a, I don't know, he's bad. That's what I know. And the thing is, though, so he becomes king. He starts doing this kind of stuff, and he's got about 3 months of it before, oh, look, is that the armies of the empire that's ruling the world right outside our doors? Hey, I got an idea. Let's surrender. Sound good, everybody? Let's go. Here we go. He puts together a little party. They head out. They surrender. Hey, Nebuchadnezzar, I'm really sorry my dad didn't send the payments, but he died. And I'm in charge now, so you're going to get the payments. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, yes, I will, but not from you. So he takes him captive. J2's captive now. And he goes into the city. He takes the rest of the gold that had not already been taken. He takes some of the larger items that were a little more effort to take with him. He takes the remaining nobility, whoever is there of noble blood. He takes all of those who are of fighting age or stature, anybody who could fight, the military, any of them. And he also takes all the merchants and all the craftsmen, which is important. Like, so it's anybody who can carry a sword and anybody who can make a sword. That's who he takes, which makes sense. That's a great plan, Nebuchadnezzar. Good job. Huh? And I got it wrong earlier. This is the time he takes 10,000. The first time he took 7,000. Oh, sorry, I know. And look at the holy numbers. First he takes a holy amount, then he takes a complete amount. That's not on purpose by him, but hey, the Hebrew mind picked up on it. That's pretty interesting. So he does that. He doesn't show any mercy to Jehoiachin, J2. He takes him with him, chains him and puts him into the depths of the pit prison in Babylon, and he puts on the throne a vassal. Someone who's going to rule and pay the fees, the checks. The money got to keep the spice must flow, man. So who's that? You ask. His name is Mattaniah. Now Mattaniah is the youngest son of Josiah. So this makes him J2's uncle. You may have heard that before and been like, oh, that's weird, but you might not have made that connection. He's just the same set of three guys, that initially were under Josiah. How did he not become king instead of Jehoiachin, J2, in the first place? Well, that's interesting. You might have some intrigue there. I mean, if I knew that my brother started a war with the world power and his son wanted to be king so he could sleep with that guy's wife, I'd be like, dude, we got a few months, man. You go for it. I'm going to go start writing some letters to friends not in Babylon. I promise. Right? I mean, I don't know. Oh, yeah, totally should surrender. Yeah. Hey, Nebuchadnezzar, yeah, he's going to surrender. So, yeah, it's all set. It's all set. Just come right on in. Won't even be a problem for you. Now, I can't say that's what happened. That's what I would have done. If I was that man. I'm not. I'm a Christian. I care about good practice, successful works that are based on the Ten Commandments. Yeah. But even so, it is interesting. I mean, look, here's royal blood put on the throne, third son of Josiah. His name gets changed from Mattaniah to Zedekiah, which means Yahweh is righteous. And that's really interesting. It's a good name. Justification by God, right? That's his name. He doesn't really believe it. Well, why does he choose it? Think again about these promises from Jeremiah and other prophets that Jerusalem's going to get torn down. It's done. But here he is. No. Yahweh will justify us. A tidbit here, by the way, I should have said it earlier. He was 10 years old when Josiah died at Megiddo. So he was pretty young. A bit older now, because we know that. Let me scroll. Well, we don't really know when. You could do this math. I haven't done this math. How old is Jehoiachin when he becomes king? So 18, something. Yeah, he's 18. So, how close are these guys in age? Hard to say. In any case, he reigns for 11 years. And Jeremiah does not speak well of him. He's referred to as an inspiration unto weakness. That he was so afraid of his own officials, he couldn't even tell them what Jeremiah had said to him when he believed it. He was like, well, just don't tell anybody. Yeah. Now, he does listen to them. He takes a trip to Babylon, and there, in his 4th year as king, he pledges undying faithfulness. This is a little like the Loki before, I'm going to lose his name, Thanos. There we go. Whew, can't forget Thanos. It's a little the Loki before Thanos at the start of Avengers 3, right? Undying faithfulness, and Thanos is like, yeah, right. Well, it's kind of what, no, Nebuchadnezzar doesn't see it, but it is what Zedekiah is doing. He's lying. He pledges faithfulness and then returns and starts talking to Pharaoh. Different one. His name's Hophra. Egypt will rise again, right? They think they will. Talking to Pharaoh, Hophra. They form a coalition and rebel. In the coalition, by the way, Moab and Ammon, those ones that formerly had attacked, maybe even killed his brother, they joined too. Oh, was that planned all along? Man. Inspiration to weakness in what way? I mean, either this guy's that good or he's that bad, right? Youngest son, plots the downfall of all his older brothers, ends up in charge. How wise is it to just not let Babylon be your grandpa, though? I don't know. In the 9th year of his reign, guess who's back? Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, you guys are not going to get away with this. I don't care what you do. I don't care how long or how often you try. Well, I do care. I'm done with you longing and trying. No more. So this time, I'm going to put an end to this city. No more vassals. It's done. So he sets up these siege engines. Because, again, it's a mountain city fortress. That's what Zion means, fortress city. It's unassailable. It's got a water pipe at the back of it. You can't even, it's got its own water supply. Doesn't have its own food supply though. The siege lasts 18 months. I read earlier that in the 4th month of this, the food's gone. And there's a moment where Egypt shows some support. They march out. We'll help. We're in a coalition. We're friends. Yeah. And then Nebuchadnezzar's like, oh, look at that. Here they come. All right, we're going to leave, I don't know, about 1,000 of you here. And all the rest of us, how big? Big. Let's go kill Egypt. All right, here we go. And Egypt's like, we're going to run now. And they did. They turned around. They fled. They didn't even really engage. They just ran away. Yeah. So there's a little reprieve, though, for the city where there's just a garrison outside, not really attacking. But the siege is still effectively going on. And then as soon as it's over, guess who's back? Whole army, boom, there. No, I'm not forgetting you. I know I could have chased him all the way back to Egypt and destroyed him, but remember how you pledged faithfulness to me? Yeah. We're going to make sure that you know what that means. Jeremiah, by the way, keeps telling him to submit to Nebuchadnezzar and save his life. Chapter 37. Right? So here you have the prophet of God actually saying, hey, dude, by the way, I'm still with you to save you, not forsake you. Just go under Nebuchadnezzar. It won't be happy, but you'll live. But he won't do it. So the armies continue the siege. The famine becomes so bad that afterwards Jeremiah will lament these words. He will say, look, O Yahweh, and see. With whom else have you ever thus dealt? Should women cook and eat the fruit of their womb? The hands of compassionate mothers have boiled their children. They became their food during the destruction, for Yahweh gave full vent to his fury. I'm not even sure what to make of that. Other than that, in both the destructions of Jerusalem, this and the one that comes at the hands of the Romans, we see desolations unlike any other in recorded history, really. No one else felt such wrath. Nebuchadnezzar's armies eventually make a breach in the northern wall. Jerusalem, Zion, city fortress at this time, had 2 major walls for defense, one outside, one inside. Lower city, higher city. Gondor-ish, but not nearly that big. There's other places, other movie images you can pull in from that, but yeah, it makes sense. So they get into the lower city, and they're able to fight in the streets and pretty easily just get their way to the gate to the inner city wall. And the thing is, it can be defended, but it wasn't the bigger wall, right? So when Zedekiah sees this, 18 months in, starving himself perhaps, eating other people's babies for dinner, he takes the best of his men, and they go to the king's garden at night. Don't know where it is, but it seems to be sort of in the back. You can't really go over the mountains. It doesn't really work that way. Maybe they did. I don't know. But that wouldn't be it's hard to do. But this gate must have been some kind of secret escape. So they flee. They go out. They sneak out. They get far enough away that they're not caught immediately, but it is discovered. And they don't stop taking the city, but they kind of do. Nebuchadnezzar wants this guy. So they chase him all the way to Jericho. That's high stakes pursuit right there. They capture him. And they bind him, and they bring him to Nebuchadnezzar, who, as this is happening, this is how powerful they are. Nebuchadnezzar sees that this guy's fled. He still needs the city destroyed because he's going to destroy it, but he's also not exactly happy with Egypt. So he just says, okay, time to go get Egypt. So he splits his troops up. He's got some of them destroying the city. He's got some of them chasing after Zedekiah, and then he's got a camp set up at Riblah, which is west of there, from which he plans to assault Egypt. He's just going to oversee the conquest of everything from there. Well, they catch Zedekiah, they bring him to Nebuchadnezzar at Riblah, and punishment is pronounced. Zedekiah is made to watch everybody who he knows personally in any way, all the nobles, the warriors who had fled with him and served him. They are all one by one killed before his eyes. Finally, his own sons are brought before him, also one by one killed before his eyes. Then they bring a spike, ice pick. They shove it into his eyes. But not so much that it kills him. They don't shove it in his brain. just enough to destroy his eyes, so that the last thing he saw was the death of his sons, and the death of all that he loved, and his utter and abject failure. A very ancient world way of saying, I forgive you. He's bound with double chains of brass and taken to the pit prisons of Babylon, where he eventually dies alone in obscurity. Meanwhile, the city is razed to the ground. Solomon's temple completely destroyed. I mean, these are marble walls leveled. Palace of David, gone. Entire city, including its outer walls, gone. The 60 principal men who were still in the city, including the high priest, who was the great forebear of Ezra, they're also taken to Ribnah, put to death there. There's a few people who remain who are led away as captives, but mainly what gets left behind is, I mean, they're called the vine dressers and farmers. I think we got to understand they're the poorest of the poor. Farm hands is probably best. They don't have any land themselves. They are uneducated. What are they going to do? So that's who's left behind. Jeremiah 52 says that. Finally, even the brazen vessels of the temple, which you wouldn't normally waste your time taking because it's valuable, but not that valuable. I'm emperor of the world. What do I care about brass? And they're big. I mean, there's like 12 life-size oxen, solid brass, holding up a single basin called the sea, which held water in it for cleansing the sacrifices. Huge. Yeah, they break it down. Take it all. Nothing is left. So that 2 Kings 25:21 says, thus was Judah carried away out of its own land. Boom, done. Old covenant, over. But the story's not. And not even the way you think. This is the part where when I was studying this, I was like, wait a minute. I didn't even know this was here. Nebuchadnezzar then installs a governor. His name is Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam. Oh, I should have been more prepared for that one. Son of Ahikam. He is known from the book of Jeremiah for having intervened at one point to save Jeremiah's life. He's not a bad guy. And Nebuchadnezzar commands him to govern from Mizpah. Now, there were some troops that had served Zedekiah and had escaped with him who did not get captured. And when they hear about this, that there is a governor at Mizpah, a brother in a sense, Gedaliah, they come to him and they pledge fealty to him that he might protect them from the Babylonians who are still in the area fighting Egypt. Now, among them is a guy named Ishmael, son of Mattaniah, probably the king's secretary, probably not the Mattaniah who is a son of Zedekiah, but he is a man who has royal blood, and thus a claim to the throne. But as this is all happening, Gedaliah, the governor, gets a letter from a guy named Johanan, and the letter says this. It says, Ishmael plots treachery. Jeremiah 40:13, excuse me. But Gedaliah, he's, we're okay. We got Babylon on our side. He knows better. We got nothing to fear. So let's set up a party. Yeah, let's invite him in. We'll have some food, salt and bread, perhaps. Anybody? Yeah? And red wedding. Anybody? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. They're at dinner, and Ishmael and his men betray and slaughter Gedaliah and his people. He has made a compact, by the way, Ishmael, with the Ammonite king Baalis, and it is to kind of work together, to throw off Babylon? Who do they think they are? Anyway, he captures all those who remained with Gedaliah and then takes off. Why would he do that? Well, some of those who are there, so he's not a son of Zedekiah, he's got royal blood, he's got a claim to the throne, but guess who's there? Daughters of Zedekiah. Ooh, that would legitimate my claim to the throne even more. So he takes off with them. Johanan, the guy who wrote the letter, knows this is happening. He's on his way, apparently. He comes with men of his own and pursues Ishmael. They go as far as Gibeon, and there's a battle. And Ishmael was such a leader of men that all but 8 of his people abandon him entirely. They even flee over to Johan's side and don't fight for him at all. Amazingly, though, he gets away. He escapes to the Ammonites, where he remains. Jeremiah 41 tells us that. And that's about all we hear about him. So I guess there's a line there. Yeah, there's a little bloodline there. Johanan, rather than pursue, takes those who he's got back, including these daughters of Zedekiah, and he intends to flee to Egypt. And on the way, they have to stop at Bethlehem. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's on the path. Need a gas, right? And guess who's in Bethlehem? No, not the shepherds. Yeah, Jeremiah. Jeremiah's there. And Johanan's wise enough to say, hey, Jeremiah, do you have a word from Yahweh? I mean, you've been kind of right all this time, so what's he say? God says, I'm with you. Remain in Judah. There is nothing to fear. Chapter 42. So what do? They go to Egypt. Why not? I mean, Abraham did it, it worked for him. So they ignore the prophet. They go to Egypt, and there they join with the peoples, intermingle, intermarry, and begin to worship Egyptian gods. It all seems pretty good until Nebuchadnezzar actually overcomes Hophra and destroys Egypt, killing, well, them. That's the end of the story. Mostly. Well, but it's not. Not quite. But it's all pretty depressing, isn't it? I mean, I have not yet seen the end of Game of Thrones. I hope it's not this depressing. I really do. Maybe it will be. I may never watch it. Got 2 seasons left, and trying to go to bed without TV is hard to watch TV. I don't know when to do it. Get up at 6 and watch TV? Maybe on Saturday. No, I'm doing Saturday morning and chill on Saturday. Can't do it then either. So, I don't know. But very depressing. That's the point. And then you have to say, so what of the promises? Right? We said this at the start. What of David? And the promise that his throne would endure forever. His throne just got destroyed. What of Abraham? And his promise that his children would outnumber the stars of the sky and bless the world? What of the fact that they are the extension of the child who will be born to a woman to crush the head of the serpent? If David's lineage is all dead, and it's true. I mean, I lost his name already. It's pretty tough. Ishmael. If this Ishmael guy has the lineage, I guess technically, but he's not a son of... He's got royal blood. He's not a son of Zedekiah. He's not a son of J1 or J2 or Jehoahaz. So there is no heir left. Oh, wait. There's one. I mean, Zedekiah was an heir. He was put in the prison in Babylon, and we know he died there. But there was another guy. Did you forget? He was put in the prison of Babylon, and I haven't said it. He's not dead. This would have been J2. Jehoiachin. Yeah? This guy is down in the pit of Babylon. All that time that Daniel is like at school and besting everybody, calling out the worship of idols and fiery furnaces of Daniel's friends, all that. Not the lion mouth thing yet. That hasn't happened yet. But all that early stuff in Daniel, all that time, even while Nebuchadnezzar's mad, all that time, 37 years, Jehoiachin, king of Judah, is in the pit in Babylon. And in the 12th month, on the 25th day of the month of that 37th year, after the death of his father, Nebuchadnezzar, evil Merodach becomes king of Babylon. Now, we've talked about this guy before, and again, this is where it does get confusing as to who's who and when's when, but I know this much. Evil does not mean evil. It means a verb that we don't know the meaning of. Merodach is Marduk, who is a major god of Babylon, right? So, servant of Marduk is just a nice vanilla translation. Servant of Marduk becomes king of Babylon, and the year that he begins to reign, he does something that makes a lot of sense. If you're inheriting the empire of the world, you got so much money, you got like your own island, right? You're not worried about nothing. So I got an idea, buddies, all your friends. Why don't we it'd be a kick. Why don't we go down in the prisons and let's see who's there from like 40 years ago, right? Or 30. All the kings that my father forced into submission, who've been down there all the time, why don't we let them out? I mean, they got to be all old men by now. And it's probably insane even. Why don't we let them out? And we'll put some nice clothes on them, give them a little house in the corner of the city, enough money to maybe have a court. We'll see. And he does this. And he's like, why don't we pick one? Let's pick one and like really make it like he's one of us, right? Let's make it like he's totally one of us. Oh, what about that guy? That guy's look how scrawny he is. He reminds me of that Daniel guy. Oh, that guy's scary. But no, yeah, look how scrawny he is. Yeah, so yeah, let's choose him. J2, put him in some fine clothes and have him sit just down from me at the table every night. Give him a great allowance. Let him walk around like he's one of the kings among us here. That'll show the power that I have to everybody. And so J2, Jehoiachin, was released from the prison in his 37th year and made a noble of Babylon with lots of money. And he did live there until the day that he died. Now, Jehoiachin, while he's there, fathers a guy by the name of Shealtiel. Shealtiel fathers a guy by the name of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is appointed by Cyrus, king of Persia. Lots changed hands by that point, but Cyrus, king of Persia, following the advice of Nehemiah's cupbearer, he appoints Zerubbabel and then also the high priest Joshua, along with the priest Ezra, to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. Because, well, the prophecies have to be fulfilled and it needs a temple. It needs to be a temple for that. Jeremiah 29 had said, when 70 years are completed, I, God, will visit you, fulfill my promise. I know my plans for you. I'm going to give you a future and a hope. I'm going to restore your fortunes. I'm going to gather you from the nations, bring you back to the place from which I had sent you into exile. So Zerubbabel goes back, and the whole bit from Nehemiah and Ezra are about kind of how he's not really ever king at all. He is kind of a governor. Things don't go so well, but he does have some kids. He has a boy named Abiud, who has a boy named Eliakim, who has a boy named Azer, who has a boy named Zadok, who has a boy named Akim, who has a boy named Eliud, who has a boy named Eleazar, who has a boy named Mathan. All this time, the Seleucids, right? Ptolemy, Antiochus, and all that stuff. The Maccabees. I mean, go back and find some of the old podcasts on those stories. They're so good. That's all going on. Mathan, way after this, Rome's really taken over by this point. Mathan fathers Jacob, and Jacob fathers Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born. And oh, look at that. It was all about Jesus the whole time. It was all about the bloodline not being abandoned and the promises of the life in that blood coming to fruition and fulfillment. And just in case you're a snarky atheist who's listened this far, which is very unlikely, and you're like, wait a minute, Joseph isn't the father of Jesus. You're like, okay, you're right. You can kind of make that argument from our perspective, although from their perspective, it wouldn't necessarily have worked out as nicely as you like. But just so you know that the lineage/DNA of David is actually in Jesus' bloodlines, I mean, it would be actually even if he was adopted, by the way they would have thought about it. But just so you know, for you and your snarkiness, Luke points out that Mary has her own lineage. And, well, we're going to go backwards here. Her dad's Heli. He comes from Mathat. Him from Levi. Him from Melchi. And then there's Jenai, Joseph, Mattathias, Amos, Nahum, Esli, Nagai, Ma'ath, Mattathias, Simeon, Josek, Joda, Johanan, Risa, who's the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel. Oh, there you go. So Mary was descended from him too, and Mary's the mother of Jesus. Kaboom. Now, how much do you remember? Yeah, we're really going to leave it there. I don't know that I can get back into Everlast today. Oh, man, I want to do that so bad. But we'll see. We'll see if we can bring him back next week. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's two really different podcasts, wasn't it? Yeah, all in one. I'm not going to split it up for you. It's too much work. You do that work. Yeah, you do that work.
Was that worth $1? What about 5? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?